welcome to Heart-Centered Success. I'm your host, Diane Hayworth, and I'm really excited about our topic today. You know, if you've been watching this show, that I really want people to understand how to come from that place of divine love, that inner wisdom. And a lot of times people will tell me that they think they might be getting guidance, but they're just really not sure. So tonight's episode is all about recognizing divine guidance. Because until you kind of are aware of it, it could be a little confusing. I have a panel of experts that's going to help us explore this, and I want to welcome Melissa Fike. Melissa is a spiritual intuitive from Spiritual Expansion Academy and a brand new author. Congratulations. Glad you're here, Melissa.
Thank you.
Next to Melissa is Harry Boyd. Harry's a former police officer. He's an intuitive, an author, and a speaker. And a warning alert, he and I have known each other for 40 years.
I don't think
So, yeah, I was much younger then.
Much.
So I'm excited to have him here. And Miranda Powell is back. Miranda's Angelic intuitive and an empowerment coach. So as you can see, we've got wonderful people to help us explore this. So let's get to it. I know that when I'm talking to clients about guidance, one thing they're always worried about is, how do I know if this information I'm getting is from my ego or for the divine? Now, what I tell them is usually the ego is a lot more frantic, fearful, whereas the divine, that inner wisdom, is just such a more settled, peaceful. That doesn't mean it's not persistent, by the way. Could be more of a gentle nudging and an inner knowing. We're going to talk about the clairs in a few moments. But is there anything else you all could add to helping people understand the difference between ego and divine, Miranda?
I think that with ego, we're really kind of rooted in fear.
Right.
There's a big fear there, and we're very much in the moment of whatever's going on. Where with spirit, we're more seeing a broader picture, or we're presented a broader picture, and it's a little bit more loving and patient and kind. But not that ego doesn't have a place. It does. Ego has a place, because if we think about it, when we were children, ego kept our boundaries up. It taught us right from wrong. And now that we're older, ego still can do some good for us, because it offers us, kind of sways us away from embarrassment and from failure. So ego has its place, but it just needs to be in balance.
And we just need to know, if we're really looking for divine guidance, what's what?
When we're looking for divine guidance, I believe meditation, sitting in, tapping in, and usually it's going to come, sometimes it can come loud, it doesn't have to be gentle coming through, but at the same time, you're going to get an overall feeling of love and protection. It's a different feeling than ego. Ego is very, it's very negative, telling you what not to do, where when you're getting guidance from spirit, it's more loving, and it's offering other solutions rather than telling you not to do something.
Action-oriented in a different way.
Yes, very much so.
Harry, Melissa, do you all have anything that you want to add to that? Or
I want to agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
One of the tricks that I've taught people over the years is that sometimes the ego will come from a different place. So a lot of times I notice the ego coming from like a lower, like from here, and spirit coming from this direction. And once you kind of understand that the ego is coming from this more fearful place, so it's coming from the lower, and then spirit is coming more from a higher vibration, so it sounds and feels different. And it's part of your experience. The divine is coming through, and sometimes it's your higher consciousness, so it doesn't even need to be outside of yourself. And
a lot of times it's not.
And it's not, right, exactly. And I always call the ego the oinking pig. It just oinks in your ear all the time. That's how you know it's the ego.
Wonder what the former police officer thinks about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not sure I'm feeling a lot of love on this side of the room. Well, this is also a strange thing for a former police officer to say, but I have found, as I have gone through many incarnations, is that the thing that works for me is to trust my feelings. Policemen aren't supposed to have feelings. I had one once, but it went away. But anyway,
But it came back.
But it came back. But and I tell folks when they ask me this question that feelings are the language of the soul. That's the way our soul communicates with the rest of us, with our head and this body that we walk around with. So I always tell folks to use that feeling test. You know, if it feels right, it probably is. If it feels wrong, it probably is. No matter what your head is telling you, no matter how good it might look on paper, you got to put that feeling test to it. And if it and that's the way it works for me.
Now that's really interesting. One of the things that I wanted to talk to about is our audience might have heard about something called the clairs. Clairaudience, clairsentience, all that means just a way that you are getting information. So for example, if you're going into meditation, which is one thing I love to do, sometimes you will hear a message, that's clairaudience. Sometimes you'll feel a message, as Harry said, and we're going to talk about something like that in a second. But you will actually get that gut feeling, right? You'll have that thing. And then other people, clairvoyance is having visions, and there's different types. But Harry, again, I've known you for a long time, and certainly we did not talk about these kinds of topics 20, 30, 40 years ago.
No, we did not.
Tell us about that time when you were an officer and you reacted to a feeling you had. And if you really thought that was intuition or not.
Yeah. I had been on the police department for a while, and I was out there doing my patrol thing, and I got a call. A lady had come home and found her house broken into, so she did the right thing, went next door and called 911. So another officer and I got the call. We go to the house, we check the entire house, upside, up, down, everywhere. Didn't find anything. So we're downstairs taking the report. So as my friend John is taking the report, I get this little nudge from some source that goes, you need to check upstairs. And this was the first time that little nudge had shown up, and I'm like, what? Am I imagining this? Did my ego tell me this?
Did they teach you that at the academy?
They did not put that in the academy. That was not in the curriculum at that time. I'm hoping they put it in since then. So I just blew it off. I paid no attention to it. So a couple minutes later, this little voice comes back and goes, you really need to check upstairs. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what this is, but whatever. So I just go walking back upstairs where I already checked. Well, the only place I had not checked in this lady's house was under the bed. Now, in the first place, what self-respecting criminal is actually going to hide under a bed? And most people have so much storage under the bed that you can't find, you couldn't get up in there anyway. But that's the only place I hadn't looked. So I dropped down on all fours, and I pulled up the bedspread. And there, looking me in the face, not 6 inches away, was a gentleman with a very, very large butcher knife. So I did the first thing any trained law officer should do. I screamed. And then he screamed. And the next thing I remember, I had my gun out and I was on top of the bed and I was going like, okay, mattress is this, the blade is this long, so we're going to start doing this. So a lot of stuff happened that I really don't remember. But the end result was we got the gentleman out from under the bed and took him to where he needed to be. And fortunately, had I not paid attention to that little intuition, that little nudge, that bit of spiritual guidance, I would have left that gentleman under that lady's bed, and that would have been a real problem for a lot of reasons. So I learned very quickly to pay attention to those things.
Now I'm curious, is that something you kept to yourself as far as in your former profession?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems
That's something
now
to
it's
spread around.
more at least talked
It
about a
is.
little bit.
It is. And police officers and EMS workers and fire department, it's out there, but it's not something that's readily accepted in the field.
And certainly not when you
Certainly
were,
not when, yeah. So we keep, those things happen. It's acknowledged, but it's not spoken of. It's an unwritten thing. You don't talk about it much.
And that's one of the reasons I wanted to make sure we were talking about it today, because I mean, you told me that probably 25 years ago?
Yeah, just about.
And that was just so telling, because at the time my mom would talk about women's intuition, and I knew that was good if you thought your husband was cheating or something, but I wasn't really sure that you could use it for something else.
Yeah.
And that was, for you to share that back then particularly, was really powerful. And I think a lot of times we have these inner knowings. We'll get that message, make that call, make the call, go call. I know that I had been, I think you probably, I told that I was just really kept feeling I needed to speak to my aunt. Mm-hmm. And, I didn't do it. And she passed away. Yeah. She passed away. And, I mean, like right then. So I missed my last time to talk to her in this lifetime. But that is the kind of knowing. And I know you all have had clients that have done that. And Harry, you have clients now too. My question is, we get these knowings. So we have that. We might hear, we might have a vision, but I'm really interested in other signs we might get. And it's been my experience that spirit speaks to me through the animals. And I had something happen just the other day, actually. I was going to do a program at a church, and I drove up to do my program, and here were some doves. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Doves in front of a church, that's pretty neat. And then I go in and do my program. I didn't think anything of it. The next day, I was driving, and 2 or 3 doves flew right in front of me, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. That's interesting. And still, I didn't think anything of it. So the next day, I'm driving with my husband, Joe. Here comes a truck. He comes, he pulls in front of me. His license plate said, "Doves for you." And I thought, hey, I wonder if somebody's trying to get me a message. Now, like all of you, I have a spiritual book in my car that tells me the meaning of numbers and birds and animals and things. And I looked up dove. It means a new cycle of opportunities is at hand, which Spirit had been trying to tell me for 3 days. And I wasn't paying attention. So what I want to make sure people know is when you have those repeated messages, it could be in animals like it is with me. It could be in songs. Harry, you're a musician. Songs happen with that. Absolutely. It could be in, gosh, it could be in anything. Yeah. Melissa, what are some examples of signs that externally ways Spirit tries to communicate with you or your clients?
Actually,
repeated messages.
Right, repeated messages. I always tell people, pay attention to what other people are telling you. Because sometimes Spirit will bring up that one person that will say, oh, I was just thinking about that. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly the answer I was looking for, exactly the answer. And I find that when you start to trust and you open that door, that's all you need to do is open the door to assume that Spirit's always going to be giving you messages. So you just look in your environment, because the universe is economical and it will use everything in its path, or your path, I should say, to bring the message to you. So coincidences, not coincidences. I believe in everybody should have animal speaks in their book, right?
I have
everybody,
that one, I recommend it all the time.
And as anyone who loves animals, they will speak to you, and it's divine. It's beautiful. It's much more fun than anything else. I love the animals. So.
And it can be animals or birds that you see in person. I went through a rhinoceros stage where people had them on their shirts. I kept seeing like ads with, there's a rhinoceros on an ad. I was like, I mean, that's crazy. But that's how it was coming through. And I agree. I don't think you have to seek for guidance. It's always there. You need to be aware of it and pay attention. Miranda, what examples do you have of ways that Spirit comes through?
Spirit comes through a lot for a lot of people, repeating numbers, repetitive repeating numbers, right? I think the first thing we need to think about is, why do we get signs, and why are we getting signs in the first place? Why isn't Creator just talking to us? Why aren't the angels just talking to us? Why aren't our guides just talking to us? A lot of time people aren't there yet. Their energies aren't raised high enough to be able to connect, to hear, to be clairaudient, and to hear messages coming through, or to feel or know. So the way the angels or guides work with us is they lower their energy as much as they can, but we still need to raise ours to meet them at least part way. When that doesn't happen, there are the subtle nudges that we get, and that's where all these signs are coming in from. But numbers are the biggest thing. People will see 111, 222. I love it. Most people see like ones all day, or they'll see twos all day, but I love the ones that get patterns. It'll be twos, then fives, then nines. And people are coming to me, Miranda, what does this mean? I said, well, actually, it's telling you a story. Just like when you're doing a card reading, the more cards you lay out, the broader the story becomes, and you get more detail. So when you're getting more numbers, I see twos, and then I see nines, and then I see fives. It's basically telling you a full story about something. So what's going on with you at that time. So numbers are huge. I think a lot of people are starting to see numbers.
Numbers are huge for lots of reasons, and I think they're being more, they're more aware of it. They're more aware of it. And there are, sometimes my guidance, for example, will be to seek numerology readings or astrology readings, or maybe it'll be to go to the doctor or go to a Reiki healer, whatever it is. I know you did my first numerology reading like in 2007.
I can't believe you still have that. She
And I
still
bet
has
you think
it.
you've done too.
Yeah.
I do. I still have it. So let's talk for a second about when we are guided to something outside. Really, it's just a way for guidance to get in, right?
Right.
And I loved what you said when people keep saying the same things. Have you all had the experience, and I bet you have at home, where within a week, 10 people tell you to read the same book?
Yeah. Something
Like the same,
that.
or the same program
Yeah.
or something. Let's talk about numerology. That's something that I personally really like. As far as guidance, it's not something that is concrete, this is the way it has to be. How does the energy of the divine work through numbers, for example? Just give us a little rundown.
Numbers are language of the universe. So there is an encodement that's within them. And they carry a frequency. So each number will carry a frequency and has a meaning specifically for that number. So when you're doing them in combinations, they're giving you a whole story. And so when I'm doing numerology charts, I can literally, just from a full chart reading, I can see the karma that you've brought with you. I can see past life information. I even was able to tell my husband when I did our chart, I was like, oh, we're gonna buy a house in 2012. And we're gonna do this and this time. And he was like, no way. And all of that came because I could tell by the numbers, the way they were combined. So repetitive numbers are guiding us. So example, a lot of people see 111. I mean, who hasn't seen 111, right? And it's reminding us, your intuition, trust it. That's one. Another message that it could be, depending on how often you're seeing it and in what context, is this is a new door for you, new opportunity. You know, a fresh start, something new that's happening. If we're seeing 2s, that means you're on the right track. There's something, maybe you're thinking about, gosh, I'm not sure if I should go to this school. And then you keep seeing 2s all day. You're on the right track. That's a school for you. It's kind of like that. So it's that little subtle nudge that we get from the universe when we're unsure. Because what do signs do for us? Signs give us direction. They help us to refocus. They help us to move away from distractions and get back on task. That's what they do. They help us to connect with ourselves, with higher beings of light, because we're not actively doing it through meditation or prayer. So this is another way that the universe talks to us.
It's a tool.
So it is definitely a tool,
tool.
and there's various ones that
There's all kinds
that
of
we
And
see.
what's a great place to see numbers?
License
plates.
license plates,
The ones that don't say
billboards,
dubs for you.
License plates are wonderful. I rode around for
Yeah.
A long time.
a long time reading license plates in my police car, and I still do. I still read license plates because I just do. And so that's one way the universe really speaks to me, is through these little, especially personalized license plates. I was on the interstate and I was stuck. That's never happened to anybody here, I'm sure. No.
They're not in this area.
No traffic.
We have no problem.
No traffic up here. So I'm on the interstate and I'm stuck and I'm just livid because I need to be someplace. And I look over in the next lane, and the license plate on the guy's car in the next lane was "Calm down." And I'm like, okay, thanks guys, I got it, all good. And of course it opened up in a couple of minutes and I moved right along.
it.
But read those numbers on those license plates. It's great
And the
source.
signs.
And the signs.
Could
That's
be
right.
a sign on something that's coming by.
Yep.
Could be anything, but that's a wonderful tool. And again, from my perspective, it's simply a way to help the guidance come through. Now, Melissa, you've done a lot of work with the Akashic Records. That's another tool. Tell us just a little bit about how that could be used for guidance.
For me, the Akashic Records are really about rediscovering yourself and looking at the places that are blocking you from becoming and experiencing joy, happiness, oneness. I actually work with people for the Akashic Records on the quantum field. So it is really about the oneness energy. And I think because we're really in this huge spiritual awakening, and it's really a time for people to step up and stop being so fearful and pushing themselves beyond their comfort zone a little bit. So part of that is healing, some of that inner healing, and the parts of us that are blocking or in the way, lovingly, to reach those higher states of consciousness, to reach the ability to have telepathy, to connect to people in such an intimate and special way. When you and I speak sometimes, I just feel this divine love, and it's not just because I think you're cute and I like you. It's more than that.
Right.
I can feel your essence. And I think that is a way that we should be communicating more. And if we communicate more through that through our heart space and connected to the oneness space, things are easier in our life and we're happier. And I believe that the Akashic Records are a great way, a great tool to heighten your intuition, to connect you to your higher guidance quickly, very quickly, and also to work on your stuff.
And you wrote a book about that. What's the title of your book?
It's called A Radical Approach to the Akashic Records.
And it's about working with the records so that you can get the guidance to be able to move forward with those things.
Yes.
So those are two tools. Now, Harry, I know that Harry and I practically grew up together. So I kind of know a lot of his stories. But remember when we first found crystals and cards?
Yes, yes.
Remember that?
I remember.
Those are divination tools.
They are.
So in your practice, I know when you meditate, crystals are something that you help. What are some of the crystals that you use that help bring guidance or peace or calm, whatever it is that you're looking for?
Well, you know, every crystal and every stone has its own vibration.
Right.
And so I sort of trade off from time to time, depending on what it is that I'm looking to do or what just feels right. I go with feelings a lot, you know. I got a couple in my pocket even as we speak, and I carry them with me. But they sort of rotate out. But I've always been partial to the quartz. Quartz is just one of those things that resonates with me. That frequency just resonates because you can do pretty much anything with quartz. Yeah.
Master.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, there you go.
It's a master crystal. It is. It's a master crystal.
crystal.
It is a master crystal.
So quartz is great. I like quartz, and you can find it pretty much anywhere.
And really, it's like you said, it's what you resonate with.
It's what resonates, right? Exactly.
We all are wearing things that resonate with us.
And I would suggest anyone who's looking for a particular crystal to go where there are crystals and just feel one. It'll pick you out. The stone will pick you.
It does.
And that's the one you go with, even though this one's prettier, but this one's talking to me. Take that one because that's the one that's meant for you.
And that's really a tool.
Absolutely.
Right? I happen to think that a lot of that guidance comes from the inside, but sometimes it's just a mess in here, and I need something, a tool to help me, and I can focus through a crystal or cards. I know that you've got a beautiful card deck.
Yeah.
What exactly do you think? How do you think people can use cards for guidance? And I know you use them and you do too.
You know, when I first started doing readings for people and giving messages, I didn't have cards. I was just doing them. But it's harder for people to wrap their head around somebody just sitting there and telling you what's going on. So having an oracle deck in front of you is something tangible that they can look at, they can read, they can look at the pictures and feel like they're actually getting something from you.
So it's a bridge.
So I think it's a bridge. It's absolutely a bridge. You know, it tells a story whether you have them or not. But I like them because I can show them the story. I can show them how the card looks, what's going on. And so they're actively participating in their reading when they're looking at the card. Why is it in reverse? What does this mean? So you can actually really kind of go through and explain where their story's going. So I think it's a great divination tool, and utilizing cards with crystals are even just as great, because what you were saying is sometimes you're a mess inside, but crystals enhance, they clear space and they enhance energy. So you like quartz, I like labradorite. Labradorite was the first crystal I ever got, and it's still my main crystal now. And it's a psychic crystal. It's a crystal that enhances your psychic ability. So when I'm doing readings, I have them around. And I find that whoever I'm doing a reading for, when they have those crystals, they want to touch them. And of course I have some for them to touch, and they ask just the right questions, just what they need to know, and they walk away feeling really good because they feel like they got everything that they needed. And I really believe those crystals were helping to enhance their energy as well, to help them along to be more open to their reading as well. So crystals and cards work well together.
And that's the main thing. The way Harry was talking about the feeling, you're feeling more empowered, you're feeling more centered, you're feeling like you are able to possibly be a clearer channel. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Is that right?
Absolutely. And we were talking about clairs earlier. I was born clairvoyant and clairaudient. I have that gift. It was just something I could do very young. My father was the one who identified it in me, and so I just continue to grow into it. So that are my strengths. But all the clairs, all four of them, we can actually grow into all of them. We'll always have at least two that'll be our strongest ones, but eventually we can grow into all of them. It's just practice. We all have the ability, and I think that's what we have to understand, is that all of us can learn this.
Absolutely, because it's right.
We're all divine beings. all of us.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So the only thing different between me and you is that I've been practicing longer. That's it. That's the difference. I've been practicing a little bit longer, but everybody can do it.
And your father was not afraid of your gifts.
No, he wasn't. My mother actually had very powerful gifts. She actually helped our local police department solve cases, but it became too much for her because she's an empath as well. So she picked up the sensitivity of some of the deaths and things that were happening, and her sensitivity overwhelmed her, and she became too depressed. So she stopped doing it. Right. So yeah, so it just runs on both sides of the family, my father and my mother.
And you just really need to honor your gifts and any boundaries, right, that you need.
Right. So I was very lucky early on when I was identified by my parents that I had the gift. They didn't talk me out of it. Most parents would go, oh, that's their imagination, or, my parents really kind of talked to me about, when I could see energy at 4 years old, I kept telling my dad I can see things flying in the air, and as I got a little older, I kept calling it atoms because that's the word I learned in school.
Right.
There's atoms. And then I eventually learned I was actually seeing energy. And when energy would take shape, I understood that I was actually seeing things. And then when I moved into my awareness is when I began to see beings more often.
Now that's really interesting. I saw the energy when I was little. My mother took me to the doctor, and I was prescribed vitamins, very high quality, Flintstone vitamins. Google that. Yeah, and I quickly learned, don't see anything.
Yeah.
Don't see anything. Now I know you've done a lot of work with helping parents support their children. What advice would you give so that someone can grow up like Miranda did and embrace their gifts and be happy with them? What advice would you give helping parents? Right.
I expect that parents will tell their children to trust themselves. And it's not about what other people tell you to do. It's about how does it feel inside. And that's what you want to explain to parents and to the kids. Kids are smart. They understand
and
it.
Intuitive.
Oh, and so intuitive. And if they get it early enough, any age really, but if they get it early enough, they're more likely to take those risks because they learn their inner GPS and their guidance inside, and they trust themselves. And I think that is a huge key. And you also have children, and you know that
both my girls have gifts. Yeah.
Exactly.
And everybody's does.
Yeah,
They're just
every
not-
single child does. That's right.
Yep.
My son was, he just knows things. He was like me. I always just knew things. And he can manifest like nobody's business. And part of it is because he trusts himself and he knows that it's all exactly the way it's supposed to be. And if he gets uptight about something, he just says, okay, I was uptight for a little while, I'm going to let it go, and it all works out for him. And I believe that is because I have, and my daughter's also a great manifestor as well, but because I've supported that through their growing, throughout their whole childhood into young adulthood.
But I also think the generations they're expanding a little bit more. Our generation, it wasn't all supported, right? It wasn't supported.
Actually, his was different.
Oh, was it?
His mom was an intuitive, and she was godmother to my kids, and she did all kinds of stuff. So I'm wondering about your experience of having Miranda and Melissa as a mom and going into a profession like law enforcement.
Well, yeah, my mom was incredible. I mean,
Yes,
she
she
was
was.
clairaudient, clairvoyant.
Everything.
I mean, it was just, And so I grew up with it, and it was just normal.
As y'all were going to church.
For me,
Yeah.
And my dad could have not cared less about any of that. He had absolutely, he had not developed, shall I say, any skills whatsoever. But my mother was way, way up the line. So I grew up with that. And when I began to hear things and see things here and there, it was like, oh yeah, that's what you're doing. This is what's going on.
That's it.
And it was just normal for me. And so it was, if anyone out there has children that are showing signs of development, for goodness sakes, encourage it, because it's just an incredible, and it was incredible for me as I came along.
And I love the fact that even though you chose a profession where it wasn't necessarily welcomed or
Understood.
Or talked about openly,
Exactly.
right? All of that's changing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no doubt.
It really is. You
Absolutely.
can't. I mean, do you
Yeah.
remember when we were kids? The only ghost on TV was Casper, and now, like
At least he was friendly.
we were born in the last century. But really now, every day, every time of the day and night, there's a paranormal or some sort of scientific based or spiritual, metaphysical show on. So it's much more accepted. And I think all of those are ways that people are seeking that divine guidance, whether it's through mediums, trying to see what grandma thinks I should do. Who cares what grandma thinks? You know, your own divine wisdom is something I think that is important. What were you going to say?
The spiritual awakening is happening, whether we want it to or not, whether we believe in it or not. It is exploding, and we are at the catalyst of major changes.
Yep.
And when there's a lot of changes happening, sometimes things get shook up. So if you think your world is being shook up, it's because it's time for you to wake up and to be authentic to you. There's no specific way that one person should do something. So your brand of spirituality and connecting with yourself is going to be different than Miranda's or myself or Harry. So we're all in this. It's very unique, but it's happening whether we want it to or not.
Right, the vibrations have changed on the
It's-
earth, and so what's
Even
happening?
NASA has
Yes,
said
well, because we're talking about the Schumann resonance, which is the heartbeat of the earth, and even that has been spiking, and you know, we haven't seen a spike like that in a long time. So that spiking is showing that there is change happening within the earth. But at the same time, the kids that are being born now, we are connected to the earth, right? As above, so below. So we're connected. Whatever happens to earth affects us, and vice versa. So what's happening as the earth is shifting and changing, the children that are being born are coming in with a higher vibration. I call them Buddha babies that are coming in right now, because these Buddha babies are, yes, exactly, the age group that your grandson is in, they are more aware, they're more connected to the crystals, they're more curious. I'm seeing that in my community, where grandmothers and mothers are saying, my kid, you know, so I got these little Buddha babies, and I've worked with some of them. It's been amazing to see some of the things that they understand is beyond what I've ever seen. But then the generation before them still have a connection. They're more, you know, when I look at my millennial, she has gifts that I don't even have, that she can connect and do. And then I have my generation, I think it's Generation X, the younger ones. Hers is even more powerful than her sister's, and now the babies that are coming in are becoming even more powerful. So we're kind of low on the totem because we're learning what they're being born into this world knowing. So it's our job to be supportive of what's coming in, so we can change the frequency or move the frequency along, right? Because we're seeing that frequency.
We need leaders.
Yes.
Right.
So they need guidance, and they need somebody who's not afraid to tell them, you can figure this out, you've got this. Because if there aren't leaders, then there's nobody supporting it.
But that's where the tools come in, right? We've got all these tools, these divination tools, and the support. So we've got tools, we've got support, and the signs are there for even the people that are just opening up to this awareness. The signs are there to say, hey, this is real. Pay attention or don't, but if you pay attention, we can help redirect you, refocus you, help you move along your purpose and path. Or you can ignore it and live in a third dimensional energy where you're very distracted. It becomes all about the cell phone. It becomes all about politics, and you get absorbed in things that aren't really going to matter.
I love that you say that, and I also love that you mentioned that there are different flavors for everyone, right?
That's right.
And that the connection is different. Harry's mother, not only was she a gifted intuitive and everything else she was, but she was a wonderful musician. Harry's a wonderful musician.
Okay.
But Harry's kid, oh my goodness. That is someone who came out connected to the spiritual music gods.
Yeah, he did.
Well, think about music is vibration. That's the whole universe is made up of vibrations.
Absolutely.
So that's another spiritual divination tool. Think of singing
That's
bowls
exactly
and
what it
tinshas
is.
and
And how
Precisely.
interesting
Beautiful.
it came through
Precisely.
that bloodline, because the music did not come
No.
through this one. We do other stuff, but that ain't it. But his mom, and I don't know about your grandparents, but I know your mom, I know what you can do, and James is just blowing you both out of the water.
Yeah.
I mean,
But he has gifts. He's not really sure what to do with them.
he's still young.
Yeah, well, he's 22, and he comes to me with things. He would, when he was small, he'd come and say, "Dad, I saw somebody down here in my bedroom." I'm like, "Oh yeah, what was he doing?" He said, "Well, he was just standing in the corner, and then he disappeared." I'm like, "Okay, well," and then we would discuss it, and he was like, "Oh, okay." Whereas his sisters would run screaming up the stairs if they thought they saw somebody in the bedroom. But it comes to each person in their own time.
Right.
That whole divine timing thing that can be so annoying to someone who wants to micromanage the universe. But the divine timing, it's there, and it's there for a purpose, you know? And it will come to him when he's ready to make use of it.
We grow into our spiritual
Precisely,
gifts.
no
Everything
doubt,
is grown
no doubt.
into. When we're ready, we begin to shift into what needs to come in. So I'm noticing, you know, for my oldest daughter, hers are shifting differently than my youngest daughter. So
Right.
it just depends. Everybody's going to be ready at a different time.
And I think we also have to be very aware that no matter where we are, we have a ripple effect to everybody around us.
That's right.
Right?
Law of
If-
oneness. Law of oneness.
And
yeah.
if there weren't people who needed to understand how to develop more spiritually, we'd all be out of a job.
Yeah.
So there is just a synergy.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And the things that I know now, I didn't know 5 years ago. It wasn't my time to know them 5 years ago.
Yes, that's
I
right.
needed all of you. All three of you were a godsend to me when my dad was sick. All three of you were. And by the way, thanks. Sorry, it's such a pain. But it's
Oh.
just that was such an important gateway
Yes.
to what happened for me. And everybody has periods. That was a particularly rough period for me, but we all have them. Rather it's the sickness of a loved one, the death, financial challenges, whatever it is. And that was, every time I've had one of those challenges, was another reason that I sought to go deeper inside, to find out more, because I realized there was one common denominator in everything that was happening, and it was me, and I was the only one that could change.
Right.
So the guidance was really, I'm so appreciative of the guidance I got from all three of you, by the way.
But your whole family at that time, it's interesting how one thing, one challenge in a life can actually change everyone. And I saw that
Absolutely.
with you, with your sister, with your children.
Yeah, my
There was-
sister's a practicing medium now
Yeah.
because she's using that to help people through grief.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody goes through these difficult times,
Right.
but we are taught through our society to go outside of ourselves to find our happiness, to find our joy. It's going to be out there somewhere in that next, you know, bottle of product that you buy or that next person that you fall in love with. Really, it's all inside. So if you start feeling that inside, you feel good about yourself, you take that one step toward loving yourself, then the external world shows up differently.
Right.
And you're more on your own path, and it's inside of you. I don't know, it's just
that
more,
wisdom.
it's that wisdom, it's the
It's that
internal
tapping.
wisdom. And I just feel that people keep on looking outside of themselves. And I'm not saying ask for guidance from people who understand things, but it's really, you've got to learn your own internal guidance and what feels right to you. Because if it feels right,
Yep.
then you know
Probably.
it's right.
That's right.
Now that's a really important point, and I want to make sure we get a chance to talk about this. Everyone here is a skilled, experienced intuitive. We all coach, we all have clients. None of us want our clients to be dependent on us.
Right.
We're simply a bridge to help give them information, tools, techniques, books, resources, so that they eventually can find their own inner wisdom. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's empowerment.
Yeah,
That's
you
what
don't want
empowerment
someone
is.
that
Yeah.
is just
No, and part of what I do is I empower the clients that I work with. I'm empowering them to tap inside, and I give them the tools and the steps to do that. But you have to do the work. A lot of people just think, okay, let's do the New Age thing where it's kind of a distraction. I'm sorry, but the New Age thing is kind of a distraction. But then you have the spiritual stuff, which is based more in ancient studies. That brings you right back to the real stuff
Right.
that you can connect with, which is your internal stuff, not all these little things. I won't get into all the little things that are distractions, but there's so much distraction out there. And it's hard nowadays because there is such an explosion, in the
Information.
spiritual and metaphysical world, that now we're getting bombarded with stuff that it's hard to decipher, what is actually helping us and what is distracting us. And I find that when I'm teaching courses, I have to really remove, I might be teaching something about the rays that is very ancient, a very ancient study, but I have to remove some of the New Age stuff that was piled on top of it.
The misinformation,
Yeah, the
perhaps?
misinformation. I have to remove it so we're just studying the real stuff and not all of the distracting stuff, which is a waste of time and it's not going to help you.
Now that is a great point, and that's something I want to make sure that we emphasize for the folks at home. you need a foundation.
Yes.
Right? When you start school, you start in kindergarten. You don't start as a senior in high school.
That's right.
Now, there's a couple people that start maybe in third, fourth grade, but they're not normal. That's not that's not what most people do. You need that foundation. And what I find in spirituality is just give me the last book I need. Just, I'll get this. I'll meditate for 2 or 3 days. I'll have that down. Just take me to the last place. It's not been my experience that that's the way that it works. There has to be with me and my clients, there is a shift. And each step is important. Do you find that?
Yes.
Each step is important.
Yes. And you know, I just recently did a retreat in Mount Shasta, and what happened was some of the ladies there had reactions because it's the root chakra of the world. We're bringing up really deep shadow work. And if people don't know what shadow work is some of the darker sides of us. Maybe it's our temper, maybe it's, you know, could be anything. But these things are coming up that now they have to look at it because that's what the energy of Shasta offers. It brings these things up where you have to look at it. And they weren't so happy. There was a point there, one of the nights, everybody was down, and I could tell that the energy was coming up. And so I was assisting each and every one of them. I did a meditation with them. I knew it was going to happen. I just wanted to see how. I've done these enough to see, you know, how it's going to affect different people. But by the time the retreat was over, a lot of people were kind of calming down into the energy. They were kind of, okay, I got what's come up. I have to deal with it because I keep telling them this is something that's going to happen. I prepared them. And now, even now, people are like, I'm on a high. I've let that go, and now I'm on a high. So it's step by step. It's a process. And sometimes it's not nice work, but it's something that you have to do if you're going to let go of some things. You have to do the work.
People are afraid to look at themselves deeply, and they're really afraid to look at the parts of themselves that they've hidden away because they've been told to hide it away. Because if they are that, whatever that is, then people aren't going to like them, or they're not going to make money, or whatever it is that they've been told. And they hide it. That's the shadow.
And I think that a lot of people are moving into authenticity. Don't you think they're starting to move?
You have to be authentic nowadays. Nothing can be hidden.
It can't.
I mean, that's part of the spiritual awakening.
Well, you can, but it shows up on YouTube.
Well, there you go. That's the thing. It's. I mean, everything is coming to light.
Yes,
and,
that's exactly right.
It is going to come up. And the people who resist the shadow, they have more inner turmoil.
And it interferes with the guidance.
It interferes with their guidance. And then all of a sudden, an explosion happens and they release it. I had the same thing happen when I was in Sedona. At one point, I was like, I need to start clearing some stuff because it brings up things. And as much as you warn them,
they're still not ready.
They're still not ready.
They're not
well,
ready.
until
but it's
you've
okay.
done it, right?
Yes.
Until you've done it.
It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to all of us here that something's come up and you're like, oh, that's not pretty, but I'm going to look at it, and I'm not going to be afraid to look at it about my own issues because I know what the other side looks like.
Right.
So let's look at this. Let's look at what do you see in your clients and yourselves and people that really are able to be in the flow and to make progress. Harry, I know you've got, because you tell me, a variety of interesting people that come to you for guidance and to help them get that guidance.
Yes.
What are some of the traits of people that you see that really are able to go to that next step and develop and get better and find more peace and love in their life, whatever it is they want? What are you seeing that's consistent with those folks?
Well, two things that the real higher order beings, as I have come to call them, two things are imperative, and these folks have this. One is trust. You have to trust what you get, okay? And that was one of my biggest things, as you recall, in Theta and all that. It was like, well, I'm making this up, you know? I didn't get this from someplace else. This came from, I made that. I don't trust all that. Once you can get to that point where you know that it's coming from a divine source and trust what you get. And I tell people all the time when I'm doing a reading, it's like, okay, folks, I get what I get. You know, may not make any sense, but I'm going to tell you exactly what I get because I trust it's coming from somewhere else. So trust is absolutely key. The other thing that these folks have that are moving pretty quickly along the path is patience.
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
Patience is absolutely critical. And again, that whole divine timing thing that we all love so much can really be a hindrance to what we in this third dimension, we want to go quick. We want it right now. I want everything.
We're American.
Exactly. Precisely.
Quick, fast.
Yeah. Come on, universe. It's been 10 minutes. What are you doing? I want it now.
10 minutes, 10 seconds.
10 seconds, exactly.
Yeah.
And so if we can get the trust down and get the patience down, it goes a long way to just, because time, as we know, is a completely arbitrary concept, has no meaning in ultimate reality.
Yep.
So 10 minutes here means absolutely nothing to the universe. And so just because we are trying to force a universal concept into a third dimensional construct, put it in that box, it's just not going to fit.
Yep.
So just forget about that whole time thing. Trust and patience, there you go.
Trust and
that's
patience,
it. That's
that's
it.
good.
Yeah.
Melissa, what would you add to that? What traits do you see in people that really are able to move?
Surrender.
Oh, good one. That's a great
That's
one.
a beautiful one.
Yeah.
And explain what they're surrendering to.
So surrendering means that I trust that all is perfect.
Right.
I trust that this, and it is, of course, it's always about trust, but that I'm not going to try to force it in a way that may not fit. Especially when there's things going on that you're anxious about
Right.
or you're worried about. Sometimes you have to sit back, and that is what a lot of religions taught, was prayer, and about going inside and kind of trusting that God had your back. So it is a way of surrender, that it is all perfect in divine time, but also that whatever does happen is exactly what it's supposed to be. And if you're trying to control it, then it's all ego. And when ego gets involved, you can rock the cart, and then things drop out that would have really worked for you. You don't
work
want all
differently.
your apples to fall out of the cart. So if you just kind of allow the cart to move forward in the best way that it knows how, and you're not trying to control every little movement, then you have abundance.
What's really interesting about that is in our culture, surrender is not a good word usually.
No, it's not.
And surrendering to trust and surrendering to, oh my God, divine timing.
There we go. There we are.
That really, it takes a lot of pressure off, doesn't it? I mean, it really does. And that doesn't mean you're not responsible, by the way.
No.
It just means you're trusting that whatever happens is happening for the highest and best.
And I'm sorry, but let me make one thing to clear up something here. I don't mean to sound that when I say higher order beings, it's not that they're better or we're better or anyone else is.
Because it's just you, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
So I'm an only child, of course. Yeah. Everybody is where they are. You where you are, you where you are, you where you are. I'm where I am. These folks are where they are. Everybody is. It just is. There's no better and there's no worse. There's no further along. There's no further back.
That's right.
Everybody is where they are, and that's divine. Where they are is exactly where you're supposed to be at this particular time.
And I do want to say one more thing about surrender. That doesn't mean you don't do anything.
Correct.
I'm a doer. But
know
if
you are.
whenever things start feeling like there's a resistance energy, I back up and I say, okay, you know what? Take over. And I always talk to my higher consciousness. Whoever else wants to listen, fine. But you,
I listen.
you do listen.
Yeah, I listen.
But I'll just say, take over. Because I fear my higher consciousness, my guides, they know what's going on more than I do.
What would you add to that?
I think
Miranda?
do the work. A lot of people, they jump from modality to modality, thing to thing, because they're looking for a quick answer. They want a quick solution. I know people who will get 5 readings in one day. They'll spend their whole paycheck to try to get outer guidance, that external guidance. You have to do the work. Do the work. That's what we're here to do, is to help guide you. When you're reading a book, it's not to give you a quick solution. It is to give you some guidance and tools so you can do the work easier. We had to learn the hard way. We didn't have those tools. We figured those tools out. Now we're offering the tools in books and in programs. Do the work. If you do the work, you will quickly strengthen yourself, strengthen your gifts, and you'll be able to tap in and get your answers easily. You'll be able to raise that vibration and connect with your angels and connect with your guides and connect with Creator. But you have to do the work. And that's the biggest thing, is they're not doing the work. A lot of people just aren't doing the work. They're jumping.
Or they're skimming.
Yes,
skimming.
it's like, let me just learn a little bit here, I'll learn a little bit there. Oh, I know a little bit about that.
Yep.
But you don't, okay, so you've read it, so that means you've processed, but you haven't integrated anything.
Yeah.
All you've done is read it. But the integration is the important piece, because that's when you'll be able to talk about what you know, what you just learned, and how it affected you, and you'll be able to share it with someone else. But reading it is just reading someone else's perspective and someone else's words.
And finding different perspectives is interesting in your exploration, but then
Exactly.
go deep.
Go deep, and then you'll come
Into
up
what
with
you-
your own perspective, and that's
Your own
the difference.
truth, whatever
your
that
own
is for you.
truth, absolutely.
And it can be fun.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
it's
call it
always
work.
fun.
Yeah.
Right. We call it work, but it can be
It
fun.
can be fun,
And
yeah.
you want to take that fun aspect of it and use that to catapult you further.
The passion.
So, yes,
Find what
the
you're passionate
passion,
about.
yes.
Like you in the Akashic Records.
But you have to do the work. I mean, I see that all the
and
time.
it's better
too.
not to jump around to all these different modalities, because if you just focus on a couple of them that you really interest you, you'll really get it, you'll really integrate it, and then you'll really have fun, and you'll really be able to use it. So it's really pinpoint. What is it
and
that
you
you're
might
really drawn
evolve
to?
to something else eventually,
Exactly.
but not next week.
Not next
Next
week.
week.
And I've seen people
Next
do
week.
that, is they'll
Yeah, I
take
have
a
too.
class over a weekend, and then the next weekend they're taking another class, and then another class. And classes are great,
they
but
are.
what did you really learn from, you spent $2,000 on this weekend class, what did you learn from it, and are you putting it into practice?
How are you
You know,
implementing
it
it?
was kind of like the law of attraction. The book came out, the book is great, but it missed a whole bunch of information. So everybody thought, I'll just do nothing, I'll just follow the book, and I'll get everything I want. But there are so many laws in front of it. The law of attraction is just demonstrating the laws in front of it and the laws behind it. So you have 12 full laws.
Right.
The law of attraction is only law number 7. You still have 6 before it. And understanding those 6 are going to be important, because once you build on it and you integrate the information, by the time you get to the law of attraction, you're now demonstrating the attraction, what the law of attraction is all about.
But Miranda, a lot of teachers don't teach those
know.
ancient mysteries. They're trying to sugarcoat it and bowl through.
One at a time, or
and,
one.
And
Yeah.
and they're not getting the whole bigger
They
picture.
pick and choose. What I found is it's a
understand that.
lot of pick and choosing,
Yes.
isn't it? I did a program called Expanding into Consciousness. I did it for a year.
Beautiful.
And what I did was I took one law, 1 month, each month for 1 year. And we went through it, we talked about it, we integrated it, we did meditations, we worked with it. And by the 3rd law, by the 3rd month, people were manifesting like crazy. Somebody manifested a boyfriend, another one manifested a boyfriend, another one manifested a car of her dreams. I mean, they were just manifesting like crazy. My husband, I got to tell you this story. So my husband, he knew I was doing this course, and he had seen this system, the speaker system that he really, really wanted. He saw it on Amazon, he was willing to pay the money on it, and then when he was ready to buy it, the price went up, and then he was mad. He was like, I'm so mad. I said, why don't you manifest it? So he's like, okay, what do I need to do? So I told him how, and we worked through it. 2 days later, he was on Craigslist. The exact same system, someone was selling it in San Francisco. It wasn't opened, and he was selling it for so much less than, more than 50% less than what it was being sold on Amazon. And he got his whole brand new system for less money than he had anticipated. He manifested it.
But he used the laws as a
He
guidance
used the
tool.
laws as a guidance. That's what he did.
So in the time we have left, let me get one quick tip from each of you on how would you recommend someone in our audience who really wants to connect and recognize that guidance. What would you advise them to do? Melissa, where is a good place to start? With Miranda, is that what you want me to do?
Well, I believe have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have a lot
that's
of
your
fun,
passion. Go.
and don't and trust. I mean, that's just, I know we've said it a million times, but those really are the foundation.
Great. Harry, what about you? What
Do
would-
not be intimidated.
Yes, that's right.
don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. Just
Oh,
get out
that's
there and do
great.
it. If you're talking to angels, then talk to them.
That's it.
Yeah, if you talk to
Call
one,
up Gabriel
tell
and say,
Dad,
hey.
you know, if
Yeah,
you're talking to
do it.
Metatron in the grocery store,
Just
stand
do
over
it.
here by the, go over there by the carrots and have a conversation. Just don't worry about the rest of whatever. The people don't get it. It's okay. You get it. That's all that matters.
Great.
Don't be intimidated.
Rhonda, what would be your tip?
A tip is meditation. Meditation is the key. With gratitude and meditation, you have the keys to open all doors. Everything. Journal the signs that you're seeing. Start paying attention to the animals that are reoccurring. Start paying attention to numbers, feelings that you might have. those type of things. When you start writing those in a journal, you start to reflect and realize that the signs are always coming through. You're always seeing signs that maybe you've missed before. But meditation is the key. Sit with gratitude, do meditation, even if it's 5 minutes. 5 minutes is better than nothing.
That's exactly right.
Do it, it opens doors and it opens your awareness, and that's where the signs are, is in awareness. So sitting in awareness, you'll see those signs.
Now, I think that's very important. I know all of us here meditate. I know that there are many, many ways to meditate. That's a good way to go out and find the best way for you to meditate. I believe that that's exactly right. That is what unlocked that divine key for me. Yeah. Meditation, gratitude, and what I would add is forgiveness.
Yes.
And usually it was forgiving myself for being stupid, for not talking to Metatron next to the carrots.
Yes, well,
I thought, I knew I was on camera
place.
somewhere, and it was going to be like crazy lady with the colored hair by carrots. But I really had to forgive myself for why did it take me this long, whatever this long was. Why didn't I get that? Why didn't I get that? It's not about that.
No.
It's not about that. So I would say meditation, gratitude, trust, don't be afraid, or don't do it on camera. Whatever that would be.
That's right.
If you can get away with that. And forgiveness would be key.
Yeah.
I really am excited that we got a chance to do this. I hope you guys learned a lot. You can see why these guys are my friends and why I love them so much. Melissa, thank you for being here. How can people find out more about you and your work?
My website, melissafeik.com.
And we will have all the information after this, by the way. Harry, how can people get in touch with you?
Just shoot me an email, harryboyd11@gmail.com. See, double one.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
double one.
Double one.
And Miranda.
Mine is Angelic Ricky Light Healing on Facebook and angelicrickylight.net.
How wonderful is that? I really appreciate you all being here. Is there anything else we've missed that you all would like to add to help people recognize those spirits, the way Spirit is talking to them? Remember the repeated messages, songs, using divination tools, finding professionals.
Numbers,
Anything.
repeating numbers, feathers,
Books.
coins, books,
Feelings.
conversations. There's
The
everything.
feelings.
Feelings, yes. Tapping. If something's in you that's saying don't do this or don't, pay attention to that. At least give it some awareness. Why am I feeling that way?
Let me ask this one question before we have to leave, because I think the feelings is really key. How do people know the difference between anxiety and a feeling they need to pay attention to?
Anxiety is when we're thinking of something in the future that we can't control, and so we're creating something in our head that it hasn't even happened. So it creates an anxiety because we're setting a standard or an expectation. But if we're sitting in awareness, whatever's coming through will come through in a gentle way. We're not going to be stressed out. It's going to come in a way that we're going to feel calm enough to accept it coming in.
It's not frantic.
It's not frantic
You
at
said
all.
when you got that nudge to go upstairs,
Yes.
it was a persistent, it wasn't, oh my God, Harry, get upstairs. It was,
No, it was you need to go check upstairs, and of course I didn't do it. And then it was like, hey man, you really need to go. You really need to go check upstairs.
it.
And thank goodness I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Trust those feelings.
that's where we're going to end. Check upstairs. Wherever you are.
Look under the bed.
Wherever you are.
Look
You
under
need
the
to
bed.
Look under the bed. You
ain't
need to trust your feelings.
That's right.
You need to remember that guidance is all around you. There are things that you can do to be more aware of it, but that love, that oneness we've all talked about today, it's for you, it's for everyone. You are not the one exception, like my cousin thought it was everybody but her. No, it's you, it's everyone. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Heart Centered Success. I'm your host, Diane Hayworth, and I'll see you next time.